Triple H, the head creative officer of WWE, has changed the company for the better in the eyes of many during a tumultuous period, and some cite him as possibly the biggest anchoring reason for WWE's creative resurgence and their overall resurgence across the board in the last few years. To many, the best that wrestling has been since the early 2000s has been in the past few years under him since, the last regime that ran WWE. And when you look at the star power and the quality of storylines, the moments, and those numbers that WWE likes to tout, it's hard to argue against it. Do not claim that we're being biased. It's all there. You guys can see it as well. For years, under the previous regime, WWE fans felt like they were banging their head against the wall, watching 3 hours of Raw where it would be good, then it'd be bad, then it'd be good, then it'd be, you know what we're going for, and only the most hardcore dedicated group would stick around beyond the traditional high-end WrestleMania season. Still, that's a lot of people. In 2022, it presented a breath of fresh air when the man responsible for tearing scripts at the last minute and the man responsible for a lot of the other issues that we are all aware of, that's not what this video is about, was taking a step back from that role as the most powerful man in the wrestling industry. The new vision appears to be a collective effort with ideas flourishing, an old-school refocusing approach to long-term storytelling combined with the demands of modern, drastically different audiences who are on a 24/7 media consumption cycle with social media and other things to take it all in. There has been a debate, a fickle one, it's not a huge debate, but it's brewing, that there are some superstars who clearly have been worse off after Triple H took over as the head of WWE's creative vision, and there's been some who have not been worse off. The argument is that Triple H, like the regime before, has a clear set of men and women they prefer, and a set that he doesn't have as much interest in working with. Subjective views on everything that's creative and entertainment. That's a hard idea for people to understand. The implications go a little bit deeper, but keep it in light. It has a lot to do with, just really speculation. So this is purely speculative, and there's some information there, but don't say that these are hard, factual things that we're presenting. Just a general conversation that's starting to grow. In the comments, you can see how Triple H has people that he's truly trusted and have ran with the ball when he gave it to them during his time with WWE NXT, while not favoring many superstars who thrived or thriving under Vince McMahon. He trusted people, and when they delivered for him, he would certainly make it pay off for them. So we're here to look into whether, this Triple H team indeed has their favorites, and if they do, that's okay. That's kind of how these things work, guys. For argument's sake, we're going to create a few different categories so you can follow this. And then one category is the guys that either already had top positions or were on a career trajectory where it didn't really matter if Triple H chose them, they already earned their spots. Second category is the guys that you can see in WWE that most definitely benefited from the regime change. The circumstances were in their favor, and it was time for them to maybe get a new shot under the new regime. The third category will be superstars who have almost undeniably maybe fallen down the card, and maybe, that's a part of the circumstances that they didn't benefit from. The fourth are the ones who are neither here nor there. The category features superstars who might be getting some television time, but they haven't become necessarily bigger stars in the process. The fifth category is superstars who have enjoyed TV time and continuously have been popular, and they aren't necessarily in a better position. They are just, you think you know all the wrestling stories? There's more you haven't heard yet. Join us on Backstage Pass. Category 1 will feature Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, Rhea Ripley, Bayley, CM Punk, Gunther, Randy Orton, and celebrity superstar Logan Paul. Category 2 will feature Jey Uso, Damian Priest, Sami Zayn, LA Knight, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, Nia Jax, Liv Morgan, Chelsea Green, Bo Dallas, Chad Gable, Dominic Mysterio, and Pete Dunne. Category 3, Bobby Lashley, MVP, AJ Styles, Austin Theory, Omos, The Street Profits, Braun Strowman, Baron Corbin, Lacey Evans, Veer Mahan, Shanky Elias, Dana Brooke, Dolph Ziggler, Jinder Mahal, Rick Moss, and Rick Boogs. Category 4, Tegan Knox, Karrion Kross, Piper Niven, Candice LeRae, Indy Hartwell, Naomi, among others. Category 5, Finn Balor, Otis, Rey Mysterio, Sheamus, Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston, Maxine Dupree, Shayna Baszler, Zelina Vega, Bianca Belair, Ivar, The Miz, and R-Truth. If you look at Category 5 in particular, you'll notice that the lines get a little bit blurry, but this is kind of the depth chart we're kind of eyeballing here. R-Truth and The Miz, two guys who've had some real success in the past few years, but their overall careers will absolutely earn them a place in the WWE Hall of Fame, while under the Triple H regime, they got to be WWE Tag Team Champions. Finn Balor has been a part of the massive storylines and massive title reigns related to the Judgment Day. Maxine Dupree is arguably in a better spot than she was before Triple H took over the company, and she certainly has improved her stock with her improved overall performance. Bianca Belair, the EST, her role specifically is to help build up Jade Cargill as a future superstar, and she's doing that. She's also won 2 tag team titles since that partnership began. So everyone at every level seemingly has something special to do, especially if they're featured in WWE television under Triple H. So that's when you can kind of see how it isn't a very black and white situation. There are shades of gray here. These are the names of superstars who are likely to get big opportunities in the future if you're watching this video, but they're not in a position right now where organically they're slotted for that tomorrow. While not everyone is the names you're going to see make it big and be at the top of the card, it's safe to assume that the very best ones will likely get huge chances in the future. Liv Morgan is one of the only few names who looked like she wasn't preferred by the new regime maybe when it started, but to her credit, she has managed to snatch an opportunity in 2024 and run with it, caused by various circumstances, and she's running with the ball and also the hand of Dirty Dominic Mysterio. And that's the beauty of wrestling. All it takes is maybe circumstances, someone being injured, and someone gets to have another shot to fight their way up the card. Putting these superstars into these categories makes it a lot easier to understand who's benefiting and maybe who isn't on a spectrum of severity and, positivity. In Category 3, the biggest disappointment can be seen in how WWE's new regime, we're playing that word out, I know, has handled the likes of former WWE champion Bobby Lashley, the very McMahon-loved mid-card heel Austin Theory, the big, very muscle-bound Braun Strowman, who's recently done some big things but also had to deal with some injuries since the Triple H regime, and the Street Profits, who at one time were seen as one of the top tag teams in all professional wrestling, but now they're not seen as that. But on the other hand, there's names that were released and weren't necessarily setting the world on fire, even if they were reported Vince McMahon handpicked superstars like the guitar-slaying Rick Boogs, who had an unfortunate injury and put him on the shelf, and the Indian monster, Veer Mahan. These are superstars who unfortunately get lost in the ever-shuffling shuffle of WWE. It's worth noting in all of this, you're saying, oh, well, this person's favored and that person's favored. Remember, they're all competing for these spots at the same time. And also, there's the reality of roster cuts and cleanups and roster shuffles and call-ups from NXT being a part of the overall WWE game for a long time now. All of you saying, how did they cut this guy? How could they even do that? You know, at one point, even John Cena was on a list of possible cuts in 2002 before he really broke big with the first incarnation of his rapping character on a tour bus, catching the eye of Stephanie McMahon, and the rest became history, and then he became one of the most biggest names that there possibly could be. Yeah, there's a future for people at all levels of the WWE roster. When you have a roster that big, people are going to be that competitive, and having people fall back in line seems like inevitable, if not natural. There's also a clear philosophy that Triple H has had for not putting people on television just for the sake of doing it. Everyone has to have something defined to do. Defining a character, defining their presence, defining the consequences of what they do on screen matters, and building to those consequences also matters. It's all dialed in and a little bit more focused front and center under Triple H. Take example, Gunther, the Ring General, between May of this year and July of 2024, even after winning the King of the Ring tournament where he crushed some really big names, including Randy Orton in a controversial finish, he took a clear step back because there was no need for him to be front and center on TV until SummerSlam season, when he would get the title shot that he earned by winning that tournament. There's also a harsh reality to be overlooked at a certain superstar just simply not getting their spot, and who haven't done well in either regime. That argument is that they haven't shown very much in justifying a big spot on television. It's simple case, natural selection and the pecking order of pro wrestling. Wrestling has always been a fiercely competitive industry, and that wasn't going to stop in 2024. Whether you agree or not, that is up for you to decide. From a certain perspective, to deny that there are guys that seemingly are more Triple H dudes and some people who are less Triple H dudes, I mean, like I said, it's speculative. But the difference between the two regimes is that these don't seem to be a direct viciousness or pettiness or fruitlessness. They're going to try something, they're going to give it a go, and if it doesn't work, they pull back on it. It doesn't seem like backstage politics or something that drives it nearly as more or are as flippant, maybe less dedicated to people trying some things as we saw under the most recent years of Mr. McMahon and John Laurinaitis being in some controlling position of creative and talent relations. Now, that isn't to say that all of those, up and down roles for wrestlers on the roster were attributed to these people, but a lot of people are going to put the flack up at the top, aren't they? Even when AEW started to announce in the world that they were coming in 2019, being a real game changer and challenger to WWE, specifically for acquiring talent, it promised a completely different direction in the eyes of televised wrestling for fans, including how things would be operated backstage, too. But we've seen several situations with the likes of big-name superstars like CM Punk, The Elite, Britt Baker, and MJF, among several others, that backstage drama and politics and just, the BS that go hand in hand can affect the overall picture on screen. We can only hope that WWE has implemented some level of safeguards to avoid those mechanisms of just gigantically competitive egos in a gigantically competitive environment with, a lot at stake from getting in the way of delivering what matters. A great show in the ring every single week. You don't really hear much about the toxic backstage culture in WWE, but considering how Triple H is a human like all of us and also understands what it's like to compete within WWE, he's bound to have biases and preferences, people he trusts, that he's safe, he feels good about giving the ball to that person. That's fine. That's part of being a coach on any team. Obviously, there is a part where it's a job, and not a lot less is involved with biases beyond that, and a way of looking at superstars objectively and purely based on what they bring to the table. But in his mind, that's probably what it is anyway, and it's safer to think of it that way. This isn't to say that WWE should be free of criticism for, just not making it work with a certain guy when the opportunity was there. Bobby Lashley, heck, we did a whole video about it. But we would argue that despite many names who maybe were negatively affected by the circumstances of the regime change, Triple H's vision has been seen as a very beneficial thing for several new superstars, or people that simply didn't get the go they deserved before. More than anything, WWE feels great to watch again. Everything makes sense. Stories are more inclined to start and have an ending, not just start, go nowhere, and we never find out what happens with them, at least on the overall. So while Triple H is bound to have his guys and his girls in some capacity, he's also very likely to be open about, putting a new person in a position to try something. And he recognizes talent and potential, and he recognizes people who've been there a long time and what they can bring to the table and mix with new people. There might be a new system in place, but one thing that will never change is that among all of the tens of thousands of aspiring pro wrestlers around the world, only a tiny number of them ever get to say what Macho Man Randy Savage did years ago. And that is that they are the cream of the crop. Yes, thank you for watching. If you're interested, check out our video on the rise and fall of Bobby Lashley and maybe how he got lost in the mix of WWE.